1775, our forefathers first learned the meaning of oppression, taxation without representation, the loss of civil and personal rights, so precious to a freedom-loving people, cruel punishments for the slightest infractions of the iron decrees of a royal dictator. But the vigorous young America, born to the plow and the gun, was quick to resent this despotism from across the seas, and soon the smoldering fires of rebellion flamed into open revolution. For 8 long years, on land and on sea, Americans fought to loose the old world's stranglehold on their destiny. Finally, the war was won. The great Washington, chosen to lead the new nation out of chaos. The success of our democracy soon inspired the Latin Americas to renounce Spanish rule, and they quickly received our friendly recognition. But Spain, for 3 centuries mistress of the Americas, enlisted the aid of other European monarchies, planned to reclaim her vast territories in the Western world. In 1823, the cabinet of President James Monroe was debating a vital question. How should the United States meet this menace to New World freedom?
This is the first great test of American democracy, and the result may well decide the fate of our own national existence. We of the Americas must promptly discourage any form of European intervention. The United States was the first to recognize the new democracies of South America. Let us be the first to give them aid, and thus ensure our own government against any future attempt to change it. Gentlemen, I should like to read you this letter from ex-President Thomas Jefferson. The question presented is the most momentous since that of independence. That made us a nation. This points the course which we are to steer through the ocean of time opening upon us. The Americas have a set of interests distinct from those of Europe, and peculiarly their own. They should therefore have a system of their own, separate and apart from that of Europe.
I still see no sane reason why we should jeopardize our own peace by interference with the affairs of other nations.
He's right. Wirt, what you call other nations may one day be as necessary to us as we are now to them.
Perhaps. But Russia, Austria, Prussia, and Spain are no mean antagonists. It would be foolish to defy them.
I agree with Calhoun.
What does the president say? I haven't heard him commit himself.
Mr. Monroe is a cautious man, but he is a patriot. And when he has thought the matter out, I'm sure...
Well, from the temperature in here, I take it you've been arguing again. Be seated, gentlemen.
We'd like to know what you mean to do, Mr. President.
I haven't quite decided. But I will have by next week when I read my annual message to Congress. Mr. Adams, I hope you explained that to the ministers from Spain and her allies.
I did, Mr. President, but they didn't seem to like the idea of waiting.
They'll have to wait. Whatever the United States does now must be the basis for her future policy concerning all the Americas.
Meanwhile, in Madrid, Ferdinand VII and the envoys of his despotic allies were making final preparations to stamp out democracy in the Latin Americas.
Colombia, Peru, Chile, and all these other so-called democracies must be restored to our rightful rule. And they will be restored, gentlemen, if Spain can count on the help of your government.
Austria pledges herself to Spain, Your Majesty.
And Prussia also. The doctrine of government by the people must be confined to the borders of the United States.
Sire, I speak for Alexander I, Tsar of all the Russias. We too wish to help, but...
But what, sir?
Sire, Russia has made great investments in the Americas. She feels herself entitled to California and the Oregon Territory.
In the Americas, there is more than enough for all. Spain will not forget her obligations.
Nor Russia hers, Your Majesty.
The United States may object, of course.
She would hardly dare do more than that.
And if she did dare...
What can the United States do about South America?
Gentlemen, I wish I knew the answer to that.
In Washington, Speaker of the House Henry Clay, fighting champion of American liberty, ringingly challenged the autocratic aims of the European monarchies.
It lies within our power to create a system by which all our sister nations of South America shall act with us. Our present institutions make us free. But how long shall we be free if we allow Europe to gain another foothold in the Western Hemisphere? Let us break all old world fetters. Why should we bow to the whims of European politicians? Let us become real and true Americans, and with our sister nations of the South, build an American system that nothing shall ever destroy. The chair recognizes Mr. Daniel Webster of Massachusetts.
I heartily endorse the sentiments of Mr. Clay. We want nothing from Europe.
Let us therefore solemnly vow to keep America for the Americas and the Americas for America. At the Washington home of Rafael de la Torre, deposed governor of a South American province, the ministers of Spain and her allies were in secret council.
It's this man Clay who is most dangerous to our cause. If President Monroe listens to him,
Then the United States will fight to keep us out of the Americas. And Austria, for one, will not agree to war.
my country will take every means to safeguard her American colonies. But beyond that, she will not go.
Then Spain will fight alone and benefit alone.
If she wins, my friend, the United States is fast becoming one of the strong military powers of the world.
What makes you so sure the United States would resort to war? People don't want it. And in a democracy, the people rule. So I've been told.
Clay has many followers. It was he who first advocated recognition of the South American republics.
Yet he and Monroe have never agreed on South American policy. Why should they know?
You seem to know a great deal about Henry Clay, Senor.
I encouraged my daughter's friendship with his secretary. Mr. Sturgis is not my idea of a son-in-law, but he is a very convenient information bureau. Gentlemen, my daughter. And Mr. John Sturgis, secretary to Mr. Henry Clay.
Later, at the ministers' ball, the question of the hour was still unanswered. What would the United States do?
La Torre. Good evening, John. Good evening, sir. Mrs. Clay. This is my Latin American problem, sir. Perhaps you can advise me how to solve it.
You might try firmness, my boy. Sometimes it works.
But only when we're willing it should.
That's true.
Seriously, John, I'd suggest you watch the door. You may get an inkling of what the president will say tomorrow and find a solution to this very distracting problem of yours. Look.
The minister from Paraguay. The minister from Peru. The minister from Spain. The minister from Russia. The minister from Austria. The minister from Prussia.
I found my solution, sir. Come, Rosita.
John?
You'll excuse us?
Of course.
Are you trying to tell me that you're in love with my daughter?
Of course I'm in love with her, sir.
And you want to marry her, I suppose?
But you don't understand, senor. There's much more to it than that.
There is indeed. Your presumption is an insult. To think that I would even consider such an offer from a nothing, a nobody, the starving secretary of a cheap American politician.
Be quiet, sir.
How dare you?
My apologies, senor, but I cannot permit my wife's father to make a fool of himself.
What do you mean?
For the past 10 minutes, I've been trying to tell you that Rosita and I have just been married.
That same night, in his White House study, President Monroe took the fighting stand of Clay and the American people. With John Quincy Adams, he prepared an ultimatum to foreign aggressors that will live forever in the hearts of his countrymen.
I think we have it now, John.
Good. Let me hear it.
The occasion has been judged proper for asserting as a principle in which the rights and interests of the United States are involved, that the American continents, by the free and independent condition which they have assumed and maintain, are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers.
Splendid, James, splendid. But neither must Europe be allowed to spread its political doctrines in the Americas. We don't need them and we don't want them.
I'm coming to that. In the wars of the European powers, in matters relating to themselves, we have never taken any part, nor does it comport with our policy to do so. It is only when our rights are invaded or seriously menaced that we resent injuries or make preparations for our defense.
We'll defend those rights with our lives.
With the movements in this hemisphere, we are of necessity more immediately connected, and by causes which must be obvious to all enlightened and impartial observers.
And we'll mind our own business, so long as they don't try to do it for us.
We owe it, therefore, to candor and to the amicable relations existing between the United States and those powers to declare that we should consider any attempt on their part to extend their system to any portion of this hemisphere as dangerous to our peace and safety.
This is one message to Congress that will never be forgotten. Down through the years, it will be known as the Monroe Doctrine.
Adams' prophecy was well made. On December 3rd, 1823, before the crowded halls of Congress, James Monroe uttered the words that were to secure the lasting liberty of all the Americas.
With the existing colonies or dependencies of any European power, we have not interfered and shall not interfere. But with the governments who have declared their independence and maintained it, and whose independence we have, on great consideration and on just principles, acknowledged, we could not view any interposition for the purpose of oppressing them or controlling in any manner their destiny by any European power in any other light than as the manifestation of an unfriendly disposition toward the United States. In the war between those new governments and Spain, we declared our neutrality at the time of their recognition. And to this we have adhered and shall continue to adhere, provided no change shall occur, which in the judgment of the competent authorities of this government shall make a corresponding change on the part of the United States indispensable to their security. It is impossible that the Allied powers should extend their political system to any portion of either continent without endangering our peace and happiness. Nor can anyone believe that our Southern American brethren, if left to themselves, would adopt it of their own accord. It is equally impossible, therefore, that we should behold such interposition in any form with indifference.
Time and circumstance broadened the phrases of the doctrine, but its basic principles remain. California, 1845. Powerful European nations seeking a foothold in the Western Hemisphere contend for the golden empire of the Pacific. President James K. Polk employs the Monroe Doctrine, makes it plain that the people of the American continents alone have the right to decide their own destiny. Cuba, 1852. France and England propose a joint guarantee over the strife-torn island, evince their willingness to act with the United States. But President Millard Fillmore divines their real purpose, extends the meaning of the doctrine, and warns that any such interference in American affairs will create serious complications, if not war itself. Mexico, 1866. Louis Napoleon has set up a French empire in the ancient land of the Aztecs against the free will of the Mexican people. Secretary of State William Seward cites the doctrine and in no uncertain terms warns the French to leave Mexico. To ensure their immediate departure, he orders an American army under General Sheridan to the Texas border. Venezuela, 1895. A foreign power threatens to seize the country. President Grover Cleveland stands on the doctrine, is ready to maintain its principles. They will be invoked to secure the national safety of Venezuela or any other South American republic. Santo Domingo, 1905. Two foreign nations plan to invade the island republic to enforce payments of debts. President Theodore Roosevelt enlarges upon the intent of the doctrine, warns he will not see it violated.
We stand on the threshold of a new century. A century big with the fate of the great nations of the earth. America, young giant of the West, stands on a continent and clasps the crest of an ocean in either hand. We challenge the proud privilege of doing the work that Providence allots us. And we face the coming years, high of heart and resolute of faith, that to our people is given the right to win such honor and renown as has never yet been granted to the peoples of mankind. We will not permit any foreign power to take possession, even temporarily, of the custom houses of a South American republic to enforce the payment of its obligations. For such temporary occupation might lead into a permanent one. Peace is normally the handmaiden of righteousness, but as the world is now, only that nation is equipped for peace that knows how to fight. And such a nation will not shrink from fighting if ever conditions become such that war is demanded in the name of the highest morality. Speak softly, but carry a big stick. At present, there could be no greater calamity than that the free peoples, the enlightened, peace-loving peoples, disarm, while yet leaving it open for any despotism or barbarism to remain armed. Under no circumstances will the United States use the Monroe Doctrine as a cloak for territorial aggression. We desire peace with all the world, but most of all, with the other peoples of this American country.